Here, I'm going to show you how to use the SUMPRODUCT function in Excel, and it can be a real pain, but it's a really powerful function that's going to allow you to slice and dice your data in really cool ways, especially data in tables like this, and do it in one, well, not simple, but not concise, but one formula. So we'll start simple, and then we will build up to something like this. And remember, even if you don't want to learn some product, the problem with it is somebody else has and has put it in the workbook that you're forced to use. Before we start, check the video description and click the link to TeachExcel so you can download the files for the tutorial and follow along. And make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials. All right, so let us begin with the simple example. Two things to note. In newer versions of Excel, for almost all the examples I show you here, you can use the sum ifs, the average ifs, and the count ifs formulas. But once we get to the end, you'll see that you can do some really cool stuff with SUMPRODUCT that you can't really do with those. Now, the other thing is, how do I describe this function? The description right here, so if I remove one letter, is it returns the sum of the products of corresponding ranges or arrays. Throughout this tutorial, it's going to seem like I'm covering different functions, or a few different functions. Now, if you haven't watched the true-false tutorial that I did, that one, the second half of that one will be very helpful for this one. But let's begin now. The sum product, basically what it's going to do, it's going to multiply ranges. So we can multiply this range and this range to get a result. And this is basically the simplest version of the sum product function. So right here, you have the first range, and here you have the second range. The only requirement is that they are the exact same size, because what it's going to do is it's going to multiply B2 by C2, B3 by C3, and B4 by C4. And then it's going to add those three values together. So you could make the formula out by hand really slowly, and it would be very annoying, or you just use SUMPRODUCT. And it multiplies the guys together, sums them together. Life is nice, life is happy. So this is great. However, it is almost never used this way. So once we leave this worksheet and go to the other worksheet with those examples, it's going to seem like I'm talking about another function. So we could put more arrays in here if we wanted to, so more columns of numbers, multiply them all together, and just get the result right here. Nice, neat, easy peasy. But now that you feel like you got a grasp of the function, let's throw a wrench in there. So here we have a set of data. Nice, awesome. Let's go through it and do some stuff, okay? I'm going to make this a little bit bigger, or maybe one smaller, okay? So for the first one, let's say that we want to count spice sales. I just put this little note on here to make sure I explained it early on, the true-false. So count spice sales. Basically, I just want to know how many spice sales there were. 1, 2, 3. So perfect candidate for the COUNTIFs function, by the way, but it's going to help us learn SUMPRODUCT. So let's take a look at it. SUMPRODUCT. Now this looks a lot different than on the other worksheet, doesn't it? Well, it's because we have a couple different things going on here. So what we're doing is we're checking if any value in this range equals spice. That's what we're doing right here. It's a logical test. We have an equal sign. That means we're going to get a list of true and false values. Now, as you would have learned from the true-false tutorial if you watched that, the powerful part of true and false is that they can be represented by 1 and 0. However, they are not represented like that by default. We must multiply a number by them. So in this case, we must multiply a 1 by a list of true-false values. That's going to get us a list of 1s and 0s. And the sum product will then sum that. It will then add those together. And sum product can do more than just addition. You can do division, subtraction, addition, but we're not going to cover every scenario in this tutorial. So what it's going to do is, here, we get a list of true-false values. Then we multiply it by 1 to turn those into a list of 1s and 0s. Then the sum product adds those together. And then we get 3. let's go to the Formulas tab and hit the Evaluate Formula button. We're going to use that a lot in this tutorial. And everything that's underlined is what's going to run when I hit the Evaluate button. So let's zoom in. All right, C2 to C9 equals spice. True, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, blah, 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 blah. Run it again. Okay, it just did the outer parentheses there. Multiply it by 1. Now watch, all of these will now turn to ones and zeros. 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 0. So now the sum product just adds them together. And we have 3 ones, so we get 3. You can see how it feels like a different function from the previous worksheet. And in a moment, I'll show you a way that makes it feel like we're back on worksheet 1, but it's a little bit confusing. The thing is, this format here, and we will be expanding upon it momentarily, this is how you will most often see this function used. And I'm going to focus on this format. I will show you another format, a couple examples from now, and then I will never show you it again, because most people don't use it. It confuses a lot of people. So let's go to the very next one. So that's one version of this kind of new format for the sum product. And here's the next one. Now we want to sum the spice total. All right, actually I'm going to go ahead and delete this because I already just explained true false equals 1 0. Okie dokie. So now let's sum spice totals. So we have 3 spices. Let's get the totals. 35 plus 15. So that's 50 plus 35, so we should get 85, and we get 85. Now, how do we do that? So this is the same. C2 to C9 equals spice. The same as this dude up here. This time we aren't going to multiply it by 1. Remember I said all you need to do to convert these dudes into ones and zeros is multiply it by a number, not necessarily 1. You should use 1 if you're not multiplying it by another range, but since we're multiplying it by a range of numbers, we do not have to multiply it by 1. So we multiply it by the range of numbers that we want added together. Since we are multiplying it by a number, these go from true false to 1 0 0 1 0 1 0 1 0. What is 0 times any number? Well, it's 0. What is 1 times any number? Well, it's that number. So now we have a list of ones and zeros that will be multiplied by the values over here, and then some product will add the resulting values together. So let's evaluate the formula and see that again. Formulas tab, evaluate formula. Okay, so first one, C2 to C9 equals spice. We get a bunch of true, false, okie dokie. Hit evaluate again, it goes to the next parentheses. Okay, so in other words, didn't do anything that time. And now, this is where it was multiplied by 1 last time. This time it's going to be multiplied F2 to F9, and I think it's actually not going to show us the step where it converts to ones and zeros. So let's see. Okay, and it did not show us that. But what you can see here very clearly is that everything where there was a 1 is the number that you see over here in the right column, the total column. And where it was a 0, it is simply a 0. So now we have adding 35, 0, 0, 15, 0, 35, 0, 0 together. So we get 85. So we are using this beautiful, amazing trick. Let's close this. A beautiful, amazing trick that true and false convert to 1 and 0. And we are using that to, well, get only the values we want from the total column. It's so cool, but it's so confusing at first because almost nowhere do they go over this true false becomes 1 0 thing when you're learning about some product. Now let us go to the next part. I'm going to show you another format momentarily, but first, how do we count prices where the value is more than 5? So here, was it price or quantity? Yeah, price. So here's price. We want to figure out how many of these dudes are greater than 5. So it should be 1, 2. Okay. So equals sum product, E2 to E9, greater than 5. Since we are counting, since we are not multiplying it by another range of numbers, we do times 1. Remember, that converts all our true-false values into 1 0 1 0 1 0. 1's for true, 0's for false. Sum product adds them together. This is the countifs function, basically, the countif function in newer versions of Excel. So you got that format. Now look at it, love it. And now let's go to the other one. Here's the other one. And the other one has this thing, I'm not entirely certain how you're supposed to say it, but you'll notice that everything is the same except for there's no times one, and now we have this, which is called like a double unary operator. Something like that. It's a double negative sign, okay? Or two dashes, that's what it is. Dash dash. And what this does is it says, hey, you, list of true false values right here. I want to turn you into the ones and zeros. So if I click this and hit F9, you'll see the list of true and false values. F9 just evaluates that part of the formula. You'll see the true false values. And now this little minus minus dude is what, let me hit Control Z, and now let's select all of this. The minus minus dude says convert yourself to the ones and zeros, so the trues and falses become that, which is the same as this format. Same result, different way to do it. All we are doing is making the true false values become ones and zeros. This is one way to do it. You should learn this way because more people do it that way. That's really the number one reason. More people use this method, and in the next example you'll see how we build bigger formulas using this. This way is kind of annoying, but what you can do with this way is once you want to add another condition, you can do comma, dash dash, do your next condition. Say you want to do spice over here. Yep, same size. Okay. Equals spice. So you can do it like that. Okay, so I got a little error correction. Sure, whatever. And there are no spices that are greater than 5 because spices are 5. But this is how it would look when you do it like this. And you'll see in a moment, using the other method, there are no dashes, and we will just multiply these two sections together. Now, I'm worried that I'm going to confuse you a little bit. The point is, this is how you would expand this format. But I don't really want to cover that. So maybe what I'll do, just to leave it in here as an example, is to copy this and put them right here, just so you can see it. But most people don't know these dashes. Most people don't see these dashes. You don't really see it in any other formulas and functions in Excel. Just going to leave it right here. They are there. Look at them if you want. They are dead to me. Now let us go here and build upon the format that we're using that most people use. Count Hello Kitty spice occurrences. So we want Hello Kitty and how many times Hello Kitty sold spice. We can even, if we do, let's make that Hello Kitty as well, so we have one without spice. All right, Hello Kitty spice occurrences. And in this case, we multiply two ranges. So here we go. We have just two parts, this part and this part right here. It is basically almost the same as when we wanted to do this. You had one part here, and you multiplied it by another part. Each part is a range. Now it says array. Why do I say range? Because we're doing ranges, but once you pull all the cells into the formula, they become arrays. An array of cells, just a list of cells, a list of data. Okay, so the arrays have to be the same size, so we pull them in here, one array or range right here, and one array or range of values right here. So that's all we're doing. Okay, for this one, we see that B2 to B9 equals Hello Kitty. So B2 to B9, Hello Kitty. Then we go over to product. Okay, so we're going to get a bunch of true false right here. Remember, it's going to be a list of trues and falses. Okie dokie. And, oops, and over here, we go to C2 and C9, and we want those to equal spice. So up here, C2 to C9, spice, equal spice. Yay. Now what we're going to get here is a list of true-false values. And I told you we needed to multiply it by a number, the true-false values by a number, in order to get them to equal ones and zeros. However, you can also multiply them by another list of true-false values. So here what we're doing is just a chunk of true-false values and a chunk of true-false values. When multiplied together are going to equal a series of ones and zeros. So let's test that out right here. If I hit F9, we get a bunch of true falses. If here I hit F9, a bunch of true falses. Now let me hit escape to get rid of those things. If you hit enter, by the way, after you hit F9, it'll save the values it sees. So hit escape to not lose any of your data. Now, so you saw a bunch of true falses, right? Multiplied by each other. Let us evaluate those now. Zeros and ones. So you can start to see how we want to build. If we want to do another criteria, all you have to do, put a little multiplication sign, open and closing parentheses, select the range, put another criteria in here. Something that will evaluate or have a list of values that evaluates a true or false. So you want a bunch of true false values, has to be the same size as the other arrays or the ranges over here. So it's pretty darn cool, I have to say. Now here we want total of Hello Kitty Spice sales. So here we added one additional thing to the end of it. We got Hello Kitty, okie dokie. We got Spice, okie dokie. Trues and falses, and then we go to F2 to F9. So we want to multiply the resulting list of ones and zeros by whatever is in F2 to F9, which is the total. So Hello Kitty Spices, we have 15 here, and 35, so we get 50. So it is just one additional thing more than this, one additional little segment more than this. And remember I said you could do another one that evaluates to true or false here, but this one's numbers. So we get a total or a sum of all those values. Now I hope at this point it's not too confusing. I'm trying to very slowly build out the sum product formula. If, by the way, I hit F9 here, you'll just see a list of numbers. And then that is what gets multiplied by all these ones and zeros. Now let's go to the final boss for this tutorial. It can get a lot more complicated, of course. So, total of lead with quantity greater than 5. We assume there is no total column. So here we used F2 to F9, just directly referencing the total column. But what if we don't have that and we want to multiply quantity and price? Okay, so here, make sure it is lead. Here, make sure the quantity is greater than 5. We get true falses, we get true falses. Here, remember, parentheses are your friend. We are going to multiply the quantity by the, I guess, price. I think that's price. Price? Yes, price. And that will get us results, a list of results. And it will multiply this list of results by all the ones and all the zeros to get the total amount. So if we select the cell, this is a good one to use the evaluate formula feature on. And here we go. Let's zoom in. So first one, C2 to C9 equals lead. Evaluate. Trues and falses. Evaluate again. Okay. Now D2 to D9 greater than 5. Evaluate. Trues and falses. Okay. Now, next step is going to evaluate all the trues and falses. This is where you're going to see these guys turn into ones and zeros. So a bunch of zeros, a 1, 1. Perfect. Now we go to the next part. Here we're going to do simple multiplication of each range. Just like we did, this is just like we did in the very first, on the very first worksheet for this tutorial. Evaluate. Perfect. Now we have a range of values like that. It will then, after this one, it's going to evaluate, it's going to multiply these two ranges or arrays of values together. Okay, now we have the result. Bunch of zeros, a 64, a bunch of zeros. And we hit evaluate. Perfect. And down here, lead greater than 5. 64. Conceptually, once you get into it, once you get the flow going, it's not that difficult. It's really not that difficult. SUMPRODUCT is basically a nicer way to do array formulas in Excel. And there are so many other examples I could give you for SUMPRODUCT. But hopefully this tutorial has given you the foundation to go forward and to learn more and to build more complex formulas or functions using SUMPRODUCT. And even if you don't want to do that, what is often the case is that one of your other coworkers or somebody else has used this formula and you have to figure out what it means and how to use it. So even in that case, I hope that I have been able to help you figure out how to use the sum product or understand some crazy formula that someone else has built. I hope you liked the tutorial. If it was helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and make sure to subscribe and accept notifications so you can see all the new tutorials.